Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our city council meeting this evening. I'd ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Here.
Councilmember Dewey,
Here.
Councilmember Gibbons,
Here.
Councilmember Litzo,
Here.
Councilmember Sears,
Here.
Councilmember Ward,
Here.
Councilmember Zimmer.
Here. Thank you. We'll go straight to our public hearing this evening, which is a request for a community unit plan at 600 North Ballas Road for a 6-lot subdivision. Mr. Hessel, do you wish to enter any exhibits into the record?
I would, Mayor. I would offer as Exhibit 1, the affidavit of publication verifying notice of this public hearing appeared in St. Louis County. Exhibit 2 is an affidavit of publication verifying notice of public hearing also appeared in the Webster Kirkwood Times. Exhibit 3 is a list of property owners to whom notice of this hearing has been sent. Exhibit 4 is the viewer map showing the property that is the subject to the public hearing as well as surrounding properties. Exhibit 5 is the report of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated July 7, 2022, which the commission recommended approval of a 6-lot subdivision developed as a community unit plan at 600 North Ballas Road by NJL Custom Homes. Exhibit 6 is the subcommittee report of the Planning and Zoning Commission dated July 6, 2020. I would also add to the record an Exhibit 7, which is an email communication from Joseph Kulesa, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, the acting deputy director from St. Louis County, directed to Mr. Raish. It indicates in part that we appreciate and share your concern for the safety of pedestrians crossing the roads we maintain. However, it is the policy of this department, meaning St. Louis County Department of Transportation and Public Works, that the installation of uncontrolled marked crosswalks be done discriminately. Then goes on to explain why St. Louis County does not believe that a crosswalk is warranted at the location. It also goes on to say, please be advised the county received a communication from De Pere residents who are opposed to signal type improvements. The map I reviews shows Ballas Road is within De Pere city limits at the subject location, so the county would require De Pere to be involved in any agreement process. I would also add into the record an Exhibit 8, which is a letter from an attorney representing the applicant. The attorney is Elizabeth Lum, directed to Jennifer Riley, the supervisor of project managers with St. Louis County Department of Transportation. The contents of the letter explains why they do not believe that a crosswalk is warranted at the particular location on Ballas Road. And Exhibit 9 is the Code of Ordinances of the City of Kirkwood.
Thank you, John. And our CAO, Chief Administrative Officer Russ Hawes, is not here tonight, so in his place is our Assistant CAO, David Weidler. Welcome, David. And David, who will make this presentation to the council?
That would be Planning and Development Services Director, Jonathan Raish.
Jonathan, before you start, you can stay there. I just remind everyone that this is a public hearing. There is no vote tonight. This is an opportunity for the council to get presentation from staff, the applicant, and hear from citizens. You will not hear from council if someone's in favor or opposed. Each council member can ask questions, ask no questions, but I just want to, make it clear that there's no vote tonight and we're just here to get information. First reading would be at our next meeting, which is August 18th. Okay, that's all right.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Jonathan, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So as was mentioned, this is a request having to do with a community unit plan, and community unit plans are a 2-stage process as our subdivisions. So this is for the development plan and preliminary plat for a single-family, 6-lot single-family subdivision proposed to be called Woodland Hill at 600 North Ballas. We don't get these too often. And I do want to take some time just to go over the community unit plan provisions from our code. These are just highlights of a few of them that I'll go over. So the community unit plan process provides for flexibility in residential land development where properties face natural physical challenges such as rock formation, soil conditions, steepness of terrain, or flood conditions. Decisions on CUPs are made through the development plan review process, as I mentioned, and that's one of the items we're reviewing tonight. And that proposed CUPs shall include a statement of finding the details of the adverse natural physical conditions, et cetera. And I'll point to some of those in my presentation. I'm sure the applicant will go over those as well. Then the other big piece of this is that in a community unit plan, the average land area per dwelling unit in the net site area, I know these are a lot of terms, so bear with me, but shall not be less than the required area of the zoning district. So the underlying property here is zoned R1, single family residential, which requires one, typically outside of the community unit plan process, requires a minimum lot area of 1 acre. What the community unit plan allows is the consideration for lower lot sizes, smaller lot sizes, reduced setbacks, lot width, because of terrain or similar functions. And in this case, what you see on the screen there, the overall site is just over 7 acres. The difference between the gross site area and the net site area is you take away the proposed road right away. So after the road is taken out, they're left with just over 6 acres, which makes the CUP, this property eligible in this design for 6 lots under the CUP process. And I'll go over a comparison of what's being proposed, but just note that they meet that, check that box, and you'll see that each of their lots are not 1 acre, but it's because of the development of the lot, and I'll go into that. So as I mentioned, items such as setbacks, lot sizes, and lot width may be modified under this process. There is a provision that as an approval condition, at least 10% of the net site area or half an acre, whichever is larger, may be required to be maintained as a playground or recreation area for the use of residents. I'll go over the P&Z's recommendation on that or thoughts on that as well. And that deed restrictions for trust indentures must be executed to protect and maintain common areas. There are 2 pieces of common ground in this proposed subdivision. So this project is subject to and has been reviewed against the preliminary plat review criteria. Additionally, at 2527E1 and the development plan review criteria listed in 2518D of our code. This is this approximately 7 acre site that's located about 2,000 feet north of Doherty Ferry on Ballas Road. As I mentioned, it's zoned R1, single family residential. Here are some photos of the site and surrounding perimeter of the site as well. This is one of the plan sheets from the proposed development plan. As I mentioned, this is a 6-lot, single family subdivision. The plan provides a cul-de-sac for the termination of the roadway that meets our code for from radius. The plan, that's one of the iterations that this process has gone through. Originally, they came in with the idea of having a modification for alternative turnaround rather than a cul-de-sac, but through working with the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff, they got to a design that was more favorable to the Planning and Zoning Commission and meets the code for the cul-de-sac requirement. Let's see. The right-of-way as well meets the requirement for 40-foot width for the street right-of-way. Proposed sidewalks along the internal roadway proposed. Is proposed as a public street for the requirement of our code. And what I'll get into later, it also meets the grade requirements, the maximum grade requirements for our roadway, which is one of the reasons of the swooping nature, the snake-like serpentine shape of the street there. So that helps them get the grades necessary, both to meet code and to be just a safer roadway there. So this is the plan again, without the grading on it, without the contours, so it's a little cleaned up. I mentioned the CUP process allows flexibility, so I'm not sure that you all can read the chart there at the bottom. I apologize, but I'll go over just the comparison here a little bit. So the largest residential lot is just over 35,600 square feet, and the smallest is about 23,600 square feet. Again, the 1 acre would be 43,560. So these are smaller than that. However, as I mentioned, their total area, I don't know which one's better to highlight here, but there's 2 pieces of sizable common ground near Ballas. So that takes away some of their net site area from the lots, and under the CUP process, they're allowed to include that overall in the average. So they have 6 acres when they take away the roadway area. They have 6 acres left in the development, and the CUP allows them to well, it meets that underlying 1 acre, 1 lot per 1 acre density of the R1 district. Other items you see in the chart, there are 2 lots that, as you might expect, because they're smaller in size, 2 of the 6 are also narrower. Lot 4 is 141 feet wide as opposed to 150, and lot 5 is 123 feet. Similarly, there's various setbacks, but in general, what the Planning and Zoning Commission, well, what the applicant originally proposed and Planning and Zoning Commission pushed for was the fact that it was important to maintain the required setbacks around the perimeter to give the existing neighbors the same setback buffer and protection as they would get in the R1 district without any modification. So the rear yard setback is what would be required along the north property line is 50 feet. This is a side yard setback of 25 feet on the east and 50 feet as well on the south property line there. So that's also rear yard. The internal side yard setbacks are what they're requesting a modification to under the CUP process, and they're proposing 12 feet between the internal lots. And let's see, what did I miss? Oh, in the front. So the front R1 requires 60 feet. They were able to still provide 50 feet for 4 of the 6 lots, the front 4, I'll call them, and then lots 2 and 3 at the end. When they made the revision to include the cul-de-sac to meet code, it did take away some depth in the lots, in lots 2 and 3. So what they requested was a reduced setback to 25 feet here, which, as you can see, if you follow a setback line, the houses would still be pretty much in line with the houses westward of the cul-de-sac. But because the cul-de-sac bulbs out, they would be physically closer to the curb line, right? So let's see. So those are the main modifications requested, or those are the modifications requested. They're required to provide a tree study. As you see here, the trees in red are the ones that would be saved, or proposed to be saved. Trees in green, they overlap the roadway, the detention area, those types of things would be removed. There are also some sporadic trees in yellow that you'll see even in the tree protection area that are shown to be removed, and that's due to their condition. So they're going to clear out trees that need to be because of hazard and health. So the orange line in this diagram is the proposed tree protection fence. So, and it feeds into the proposed landscape plan. You see here, the contrast is a little tough, but all the trees with letters inside them are new proposed trees. And then the ones that are a little gray without letters are saved trees along the perimeter. So the plan meets the requirements for 1 tree of 50 foot of frontage along the roadways, both on Ballas and the internal road, and 1 tree for every 2,000 square feet of site area, as well as 35% canopy coverage for each lot. They, as part of the process, they also did provide, or they are proposing to provide an additional landscape buffer at the eastern property line between the cul-de-sac and the property, the adjacent property to the east. That came up as because the cul-de-sac is approximately, I think, 25 feet from the right-of-way line, so a little more to the curb. That would help screen a little bit the car traffic and everything from the property more so. So the developer did agree to provide that in addition to the base requirements. There was also questions and conversation about the drainage and the effect that the development had on that. What the applicant was able to provide after discussion was a pre and post-development drainage area map, and they may go into this in more detail. But effectively, it shows a reduction in the drainage area that will be going off-site, primarily to the north. So you see there's 1.5 acres on their site going toward the north. Because of their grading that they're proposing, they would be retaining much more of that with 0.8 going off-site. So reducing the amount of drainage area that contributes to the north. But the vast majority, 4.63 and 0.93 and 0.69 would be going, well, the 4.63 goes to their proposed detention and water quality basin. And then these go to the existing creek area there. This is subject, as all of our developments, is subject to MSD review. And since this is the preliminary, the MSD review would be required prior to city approval of the final plat, which would be the next step. So other exhibits that they provided, this was really helpful to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I think, when looking at painting the picture of why the property itself warranted a community unit plan consideration. So what we asked the developer to do was to take a look at what might result from doing just a straighter shot road and having equal lots on either side to see what the effect would be. Because of the terrain, you get two big things happening there. Is the road becomes much steeper and I think exceeds our normal code limitations. If not, it's just much less desirable for sure. But the other thing is that there's a lot more cut and fill or excavation that happens on the site. So the top line here is the hypothetical subdivision. If they were to take a a more direct approach to the subdivision, a more typical approach. If it were flat land, this is what you might expect to see. But because of the terrain, what on the bottom is what they're proposing. So the areas in green and red are cut and fill. So it's where the grade is changing. So on the top one, it would require a lot more grading, and their plan obviously reduces that amount, working with the topography of the site. So as we usually do, we wanted to try to summarize some of the planning and zoning discussion items. Ultimately, Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of this request. They found that the land use, single-family residential land use neighborhood the land use is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, and the size, shape, and density of the lots and associated setbacks provided by the CUP are justified by the topography of the subject property. The area between the cul-de-sac and the eastern property line should be landscaped. So we talked about that. They were providing that as requested by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The amount of land contributing stormwater, they talked about that as shown in the exhibits, that it was the amount of land was being reduced that was contributing stormwater off-site to the north. Although lots 2 and 3 will have reduced front yard setbacks from the 50-foot proposed for the other lots, a larger front yard setback would reduce much of the buildable area. Then the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend that city staff and the applicant work with St. Louis County on safe pedestrian crossing of North Dallas Road, including a crosswalk subject to engineering analysis and county approval. As was read into the record earlier there, after the Planning and Zoning Commission review, we received communication both from St. Louis County and from the applicant outlining their stance on the fact that the crosswalk would not be warranted. But we did get communication from St. Louis County clarifying that the 6 homes, in their opinion, does not warrant because of the volume of pedestrians or the low volume of pedestrians that would be contributed to this development specifically, do not warrant the installation of a crosswalk at this location. There is a drafted resolution. I know it's not being introduced tonight, but that would be a revision staff's recommendation, is that recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission has been followed up on. We've made the request to county. We believe it's been answered. And so we would expect to revise the resolution to not have that as a requirement on this preliminary plan at this point. So lastly, the subcommittee and then the whole Planning and Zoning Commission approved their report, concluded that the requirements of the community unit plan, those sections listed on the slide, have been met, with the exception that the subsection H, which was the fact that the set aside may be required for parkland. The P&Z Commission felt that that was not applicable. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the F. So H is the community building. So the fact that community buildings can be eligible in the district, they weren't proposing that, it's not eligible. So H is not applicable. F, they felt there was not a need to set aside a specific land due to the size of the development, specifically for a park or anything like that. So we're here obviously for the public hearing tonight and presentations to the city council. As was mentioned, after this, the council will consider a resolution. This is a two-step process. So if the development plan and preliminary plat are approved, the applicant would submit a final site plan, final plat, and improvement plans within 1 year of this approval. So with that, the applicant does have a presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions when it's appropriate.
Thank you, Jonathan, for a brief, concise, and short presentation. You got right to the points, which I like. Thank you. Is the applicant here? Okay.
Thank you. I would like to, I'm sorry, my name is Elizabeth Lum. I'm counsel for the applicant. With me, I do have Nick Liuzza of NJL Homes, Mike Faulkner of Sterling Engineering Company, and Andrew from Elite Development. I'm sorry. And I think, first of all, I would like to thank the city staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission for being so flexible and accommodating throughout this process. It really allowed our client to explore some different ideas and come up with some designs that would be workable for everybody. So the proposed subdivision, and also if I repeat Jonathan a bit, I apologize, but I'll try to limit that if I can. So the proposed subdivision is located at 600 North Ballas, which is right in the city of Kirkwood. To the north, we have the Briar Hill condominiums. It's multifamily. To the east, single family residential. And to the south, also single family residential. And then to the west, of course, is the city of De Pere. The developer is NJL Custom Homes LLC. It's owned and operated by Nick Liuzza, who is, his business is located here in Kirkwood. He does quite a bit of development here. So he does have a stake in the city. He's interested in kind of maintaining the character of the city and the property. So again, here's a site just kind of showing the location, which we had already covered. The site plan was designed by Mike Faulkner and Sterling Engineering. It is for 6 detached single-family homes. The target price, I believe, is upwards of, is it 1.2 million? 1.5 million as a starting point. We went through during this development process several iterations of the site plan, starting with, I believe, one of the images that Jonathan showed you with the straight, more traditional cul-de-sac. And upon realizing that wouldn't work, the developer looked at maybe having the road terminate in a hammerhead as opposed to a cul-de-sac. And after walking the property and working with planning and zoning, we arrived at what is in front of you now. And by doing so, what is currently submitted, we have it terminating in a cul-de-sac, which is acceptable to the city. So we wouldn't need any kind of extra approvals for that. It can be maintained for public maintenance. And the other thing it did is it gave the developer a little bit of extra room on the easternmost portion of the property to plant some evergreens and other trees to screen the neighboring properties so they would have less risk of light pollution and kind of maintain some of their privacy. So the requirements for the community unit plan, Jonathan already went through. And they're in your packets on the slide, or excuse me, the slide is also in your packet so you can take a look at it. The site plan does comply with the community unit plan requirements. First and foremost is the adverse natural physical conditions at the site. It's pretty steep. We went out there and walked it once, and it was an incline. And here again, you can kind of see the steepness, and because of the contours of the property, as Jonathan explained, we kind of arrived at a more serpentine shape for the road, which allows for a less steep grade and also allows for a lot less land disturbance. And I believe he can keep more trees in this way as well. So also through this process, the public was allowed to participate. The two main concerns that they were allowed to observe, but the two main concerns that we heard were concerns over stormwater runoff and drainage, or some kind of obstruction of the landscape, maintaining privacy or light pollution. The water runoff, as Jonathan showed you, would be reduced in that the land would be graded in such a manner to direct the water flow more towards the west end of the property, where it would be retained and then slowly let out into the creek as capacity allows, as opposed to the uncontrolled sheeting, which is going on right now. So right now, the storm water on the north would sheet flow into the existing, it would flow into an existing drainage way. And on the south, it would be directed into the nested basin, where it would be held again and controlled or let out into the system in a controlled manner. With regard to light pollution, privacy, preservation of the landscape, the developer is going to plant trees along the eastern end of the property. He's also leaving several existing trees, and he will be planting several new proposed trees in addition to the street trees that are required. The trees that will be planted will be, of course, from the city's list of recommended trees. The applicant is also trying to stay with native and indigenous trees to the area. So there would be some more native plantings. So the proposed use is consistent with the code, and that will protect the health, public health, safety, general welfare. It's consistent with the zoning of the area and this existing land uses, and it will really have a minimal impact on traffic, schools, services, infrastructure. It will ultimately reduce some of the stormwater runoff to neighboring properties. The applicant will comply with the requirements of St. Louis County regarding the installation of recommended improvements on North Vallis Road. And I believe the county has already addressed the crosswalk. The other, so we've got our landscape and trees here. I apologize. So anyway, the number of trees, as you can see on the right, the applicant will exceed the city requirements for planting trees. And planned trees, new additional trees include 78 canopy trees, 90 understory trees, and 53 evergreen trees. The variety of trees that were planned will have, different colors throughout the seasons, different blooms. So there'll always be something to look at. So you would have, some color in the spring, some in the fall, and of course, evergreens year round. Okay, so the subcommittee made several recommendations, all of which I believe are in the resolution. And I think the last recommendation, of course, was the crosswalk and the possible installation of a sidewalk on the east side of Vallis Road. You can see where the proposed development is there. This street will line up with the existing street into Pear and Pinecrest, which is Pinecrest Manor Lane. Right now, there is no sidewalk on the east side of Vallis. We will, of course, do what the county requires. If they want a sidewalk, then that's what will go there. If they prefer to have us escrow, then that's what we'll do. So we're kind of at the mercy of the county there. And that is all. If you have any questions, and then at the end of your packet, of course, we've got a full version of the site plan and a few other things for your reference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just Jonathan, you want to come back up and we can both address, and any part of the team that you want to address a question to. I mean, stay there for now, but you feel free to address it to them. We'll go to questions from council. We'll start with Councilmember Dewey. Anything on this?
Just a couple of things. I assume that our forester will be consulted as to what kind of trees, what would be the best trees to be planted in that. Because it's a it's a different kind of environment, so it's going to need different kind of trees.
Yes, and Corey has reviewed the proposed plan currently. He'll review it again at the final in case there are any changes, but yes, he's reviewed it. And they, as was mentioned, they're using species. I know that the site's specific, but yeah, Corey has reviewed it and will continue to review it.
Good. I still have some discomfort about the water drainage. So, and I'm not sure what my question is about it, just it's just such a steep lot that I don't want it to end up out in the middle of Ballas or in somebody else's yard.
I would like to ask Mike Fall.
That'd be great. Great, thank you.
I'll try to answer your questions, but on the stormwater, we will be meeting with MSD. We had some pre-meetings with MSD and talked about it. We always do this to go with a new property, is to sit down with MSD and find out, is there any problems? Has there been any problems? And then look at those problems and say, what can we do to mitigate the problems within reason on this property? We found out what issues are there, and we're addressing those issues. Now, keep in mind that one slide, that exhibit that we provided showing the post and pre, that really gives you an idea of what we're doing. No, that's okay. So you can kind of really see the before the development, you can see how much area we wanted to demonstrate, how much water, surface water, was conveying off of the site, heading towards off-site. And then what we did is we wanted to show after the post-development is to show the impact of this development and what it would do for that. So what it's doing is it's actually picking up that water, piping it underground to the detention basin that will be installed at the southwest corner of the development. And the reason we put it in that location instead of on the north side, because of all the trees that are on the northern side, there was less trees on the south side. So the reason why we picked on that location. But what we wanted to do, all the stormwater, the new stormwater, all the impervious area, all the disturbed area will be picked up and fed to that detention basin and then metered into the storm sewer that'll go underneath Ballas Road. So we really took a hard look at stormwater because, again, like I mentioned, we reach out to MSD, we find out what problems are there before, and then try to address those. And this is how we're proposing. Now, here again, we'll do complete engineering drawings. They'll be submitted to your staff, and they'll also be submitted to MSD for approval.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gibbons, you're next.
This is a question I think for Jonathan. This type of the community unit plan does not have a piece in it where a public service for not meeting code, nothing like that exists in this.
Like going, like the above and beyond type thing, as they're saying, no, this is, yeah, strictly flexibility due to the condition of the land, the characteristics of the land.
And then there was a lot of, or some reference to lighting and filtering onto neighbors. And I have to tell you, I live behind a new house that put in the brightest light that filters all the way up to my second story and comes in. Is there a light code and what's it called? Not decibels. What's it called?
Candles,
Lumens.
light candles.
Lumens. Yeah. Do we have that? And would it be?
So our lighting, we do have a lighting code and it measures light in foot candles. However, it's just another form of measurement, but it exempts single family residential property from the code. So, I mean, like everywhere in Kirkwood, I mean, this subdivision is not unique
Right.
to it, right?
Yeah.
So there's, And I won't get into the reasons behind that, but it exempts single family residents. Now, well, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there.
Something to talk about at another time, huh?
If I could, I think one of the issue about the lighting, when we had brought up in the presentation about the lighting, it was when we met with the subcommittee out in the field at the site. There was, I believe, one of the subcommittee members had brought up that fact, and what they were referring to was the headlight traffic because
Oh,
of the headlights coming up into the cul-de-sac, what impact it would have on the resident to the east. So we had many discussions about that. And what we did was we dropped that cul-de-sac down in elevation so as to create kind of a berm there.
yeah.
And then the developer had agreed to put some pine trees all along that 25-foot section there to help mitigate that light trespass or
I
the
see.
potential for it. So that it would hit actually that terrace and not be directed towards the resident. And then again, the landscaping that would be planted there, it's a evergreen type landscaping, so it's a year-round landscaping. That was another suggestion by the subcommittee.
Thank you for explaining that. The only other thing that I have is that I know that there are, I guess, the majority of the lots, I think there was one that's meeting 25-foot side yard setback, and that the rest of them are all at 12 feet, which is less than half of required in R1. That seems,
Can I get you to speak in the mic? when
Oh,
you speak,
sure. I can
so the
address
people-
that. And there are two lots that have the 25-foot setback on the side yard. And those are the lots that abut the subdivision directly to the east. The 50-yard setbacks are all around the rest of the lots so that the exterior of the subdivision has the appropriate setbacks. The 12-foot setbacks will be internal between the houses in the subdivision. So anybody that wanted to purchase a house in there would know that ahead of time. So that I don't think has as much impact on the surrounding properties.
Okay, Councilmember Litzo.
So I just wanted to clarify on the stormwater management and the BM, all that. You microphone. As far as the stormwater management and the BMPs and everything, you said that you looked at the pre-development and are addressing existing issues that have been registered with MSD as far as,
Yeah, to
runoff
the
and
extent that
everything.
we can.
yes. And then, of course, there's going to be this considerable land disturbance and lots of new impervious lot coverage and all of that. So I'm just wondering, are you strictly following MSD's requirements, or are you extrapolating for changes in, we've had a lot of rainfall lately, to seriously address sort of maybe changing in weather patterns and all that kind of stuff. I'm just wondering about this detention basin, how quickly it's going to fill up and where does the water go? Because it can't percolate down quickly enough. Could you just talk about all of that?
Okay, let me talk about the detention basin. What we've chose and what MSD likes is what they call a stack basin. And what that stack basin is, it's really, it does three things. It does water quality, it does volume reduction, and it also does detention. So what it's doing is doing all of those facets, and we design it based on, you know, what MSD tells us that we have to do. And plus with the city's code, we meet both of those. Now, that water is held back, and the purpose of it is to hold the water back so that the main storm can go through. And then once that storm's gone through, then it can meter this additional water because of the impervious areas that's now, because of the new subdivision, is held back and then metered out. So it's not added to the storm event. So that's no main purpose behind it.
But when that basin fills up, where does the water go?
The water then will, you know, there's an emergency exit for it. It'll go through the spillway and then go on down into it. But it's designed based on the storm events. Now, here again, what we've been experiencing have been, you know, 1,000-year event. You know, there's almost no way to prevent that
That-
and to address
That
those types.
increasingly are happening more frequently. 500-year floods, 100-year floods, but lately it's been like every few days we're having
Right.
4.6 inches of rain today. So I do have concerns about, you know, just meeting what MSD is requiring, which is more or less in line with what the city and the 1.44 inches, you know, within the first whatever, blah, blah, blah. There are, you know, my own concerns about, is that enough? Or we really need to be extrapolating to some future something or other so that we don't create problems with this really nice new development, I think. On sheet 4.1, you talk about soil group C. Is that plastic clay?
I'd have to look at the soil report. I don't remember exactly. No, that's just the soil types that we're required to design to.
And it's not the typical Kirkwood plastic clay?
No.
It's actually something that's more,
Well, that's not to say that we
Permeable.
won't hit some.
yeah, okay. Uh, 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 uh. Moving to other topics, well, actually, and lots of the existing large trees are going to be removed out along Ballas, correct? And replaced with 2-inch caliper trees. Because trees tend to slow down stormwater, rainwater. They absorb a lot of the water, so there will be no stormwater to deal with. I mean, you're calculating for all of that with, you know,
And there'll be BMPs that will be installed down there until such time as the vegetation has an opportunity to grow. We'll have escrows that will be placed with the city, and the city staff will be monitoring those. And we've got a development company, that's Elite Development Company, that will be out there. There's their responsibility to make sure that after each rainstorm that they're out there to make sure that there's whatever damage is done is corrected. So it would be monitored. It's not just the developer to be doing it. He's actually contracted with a development company, and that's their responsibility, is to make sure that all the BMPs are kept up to date and address those if any would be potential to fail.
as far as the landscaping and the trees and all of that is, I mean, we're talking about too much water, but is there plans to sprinkler to make sure that the trees survive? Or what are the plans?
Yes.
On the common ground? Okay, and then as far as, I think I read something about the HOA. There will be an HOA,
Yes.
and this is, I'm not an expert on HOAs, although I live in Kirkwoods and we have an HOA since we were built in 53. This is in perpetuity, the HOA and the requirements of the HOA and all of that?
So there's a couple of pieces. We set up the homeowners association as a nonprofit corporation. It will have a board of directors made up of the residents in the subdivision. We also prepare a document that's the declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions that does run with the land. So until such time as the subdivision ceases to exist or the residents vote to disband it or something, those will stay in place. And then, excuse me, the homeowners association will maintain the common ground and the landscaping and things like that. And then, you know, if for some reason it should not exist because of whatever conditions happen in the future, then the common ground would be allocated amongst the homeowners.
And so we have no way of predicting how long the HOA might exist and the assessments and all of that for maintaining the common ground?
I have never seen a homeowners association unincorporate ever. So I think to say, can we not predict the future? No, but I also think the chances of that happening are fairly remote. And I'd have to look again at Kirkwood City Code too, because a lot of the municipalities do have some requirements for succession for the homeowners associations as well to make sure they stay properly managed. And I don't know if
Ed, John?
I can't answer it. I did make a note that we're gonna have to take a look at what happens in the event that the homeowners association ceases to exist or fails to do their job. We have encountered that in the past, and we'll talk to staff and make sure that we take whatever safeguards we can to make sure that it's properly maintained.
Okay,
yeah, I do know for sure St. Louis County does. So
okay. Well, and with the HOA and the common ground, all of that, so there's expectation that the common ground would be common ground in perpetuity. There would be a requirement that it remain undeveloped.
I think for the duration, yes. As long as those covenants, conditions, and restrictions run with the land, yes.
Those will be, I mean, it's referred to on the plat, the recorded plat too, right? So they would have, I mean, we wouldn't approve any building permit on common ground. I can't say any building permit, but a home or anything, right, on common ground. Yeah, and unless the whole subdivision were replatted and for some reason. So.
Okay. Guess that's all for now. Thank you.
Councilmember Sears, anything?
I have no questions.
Councilmember Ward?
Yeah, a couple of questions. One for Jonathan. Cul-de-sacs can occasionally be problematic for traffic flow with on-street parking. Is this proposed parking both sides of the street, one side? Has the fire marshal weighed in on?
I don't think there hasn't been any discussion. I mean, that really gets hammered down in the improvement plan details. There hasn't been any talk about parking restrictions, except I think typically in cul-de-sacs, we restrict it or no? No. So that would be a detail looked at the improvement plan stage, which happens prior to the final plat being approved. But the roadway width is such that it's typical for Kirkwood with parking on both sides on a residential street that serves 6 houses, right? I mean, you're not talking about a main thoroughfare.
Usually problems we have with larger vehicles, sanitation trucks, school buses.
Yes.
Snow removal, that
So
kind of thing.
the cul-de-sac itself is designed to accommodate those vehicles and has been reviewed by the fire marshal and public services for sanitation, and everything.
All right, and are they proposing roll curbs, standing curbs? Or
That level of detail has not been determined yet, right?
yeah,
Oh, you roll. Oh, I guess they have rolled curb is what they're expecting.
you know,
so.
those can have a lot of impact on water flow also and water control, standing versus rolled. So that was the only thing. For the developer, trying to get some sense of what you think completion might look like from first home to last home. Are these spec homes or will you build them as they're bought or?
I will start and then I'm going to ask Nick to come up. These are custom built homes. Nick, if you want to, or Laura, if you would like to speak to that a bit more.
I'm Nick Leeds with NGL Custom Homes. We are planning to build these all as spec homes and go as we can. We'll probably start with 2 under construction and then start another 2 and then start another 2 over the course of a couple of months.
Okay, so you're thinking full completion and
They're going to be large, well-appointed homes. So the build time will be about a year for each one of them. So I would say from the time that we kind of break ground till the last home being complete would probably be roughly 18 months.
thank you. That's it for me.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yeah, a lot of good questions here. As far as this diagram, this slide that's on the screen, just so everybody understands, because we've had a lot of comments and concerns about stormwater runoff. This sheet shows that before development and after development, there's going to be a significant reduction in the water that flows off of this site. And, you know, we had a torrential downpour this morning. So right now, as of this morning, before this has been developed, there was a lot of water that went off of that site. After the development is completed, you're saying that even with the increase in the impervious surface, that amount of water is going to be reduced that goes off the site.
Correct.
Just so
That
we're all
sheet
clear.
flows off the site as demonstrated in the before developments exhibit up there. So what we are doing is we're taking all of the disturbed area, which is really what's happened is we've taken all the disturbed area. That's all going to be taken and we'll have swales that will pipe, that will run to inlets that will pick up that water and pipe it directly to that basin. Then that basin will discharge it into the stream area closest to New Ballas.
This basin, how much water can it hold based on your design?
It will be designed based on whatever requirements that MSD typically, you know, depending on if there's issues and what they are coming up with, we'll base it on that. But typically it's whatever criteria when we get into the engineering, what threshold we'll need to make.
And MSD has the final say, correct?
Yes, and we'll be working with city staff too.
Sure.
We'll be looking for city staff's input also.
And I'm confident they'll provide that, so sure. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. If we need to call you back when council's, after we hear public, we will. Thank you. All right, do we have anyone from the public wishing to speak?
Mayor and council, we do have a few cards. The first person is Jay Crydell.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk. I live at 688 Trailcrest Court, which we will be the closest northern neighbors to the new development. And I would like to talk about the issue of lighting trespass primarily. If you look at the diagram, cars that would be turning into the new driveway coming from the south, those headlights are going to flash right across the existing cul-de-sac at Trailcrest Court, right into our home and right into the other homes that are in our building. And so if you also look at the diagram where there are trees supposed to be placed, there are hardly any trees in that area coming off of Ballas Road until you get up into the driveway. So listening to the presentation on how they're going to be handling the light trespass issue for the cul-de-sac at the eastern end, on behalf of the Briar Hill Farms resident, we'd be pleased to accept the same proposal for the light trespass on the northern end, and would ask that the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission request the developer to incorporate the same type of light trespass protection that they're providing for the eastern end to the northern end. We want to be good neighbors, to be able to be good neighbors by proximity, not necessarily by sight. Thank you very much.
Jay?
Gail Romuller.
Yes, hi, I'm Gail Rommiller. I live on 2006 Meadow Tree that directly abuts the ground here. And I've the one that has submitted a couple packets of information and drawings and photography. And this drawing up here is especially what I've tried to address. Yes, I think they're saying that what they're doing, there's going to be less of this ground where the drainage can come down. But what they're showing is their understanding of the water flow. And that isn't how the water's flowing. It's like what I've shown on the drawings, like from MSD, that at the northeast end up there, it starts coming down towards Briar Hill Farm there. And the photos that I gave you, you can really see the steepness of that area there. And, it's not that it flows to that point that's, 2/3 of the way down. It's all the way up that it's flowing over. So it's a bad problem as it is now. And maybe the streets on this side, they're going to deal with that. But they also haven't put together like a swale on our side. They've talked about it on the other side. But what my recommendation would be is for the council to put that they would have the requirement to address the drainage on our side also. Thank you.
Gail. Thank you.
David Anderson.
David Anderson, 521 Taylor Young Drive. Excuse me. All right. Despite the recent county commission communication just read, for the safety of all, a crosswalk must be part of this project for the development at 600 North Ballas. This is spelled out in the county's complete street ordinance and in both of Kirkwood's Vision Zero plan and the Envision 2035 comprehensive plan. The sidewalk is also the county's requirement for new developments. And yes, these enhancements fall under the county's domain. But Kirkwood should not be silenced on these matters as a matter of health and safety of the citizens and neighbors. You, the city officials, must forcefully speak up to the county and to the city of Des Peres. The water runoff issue at 600 North Ballas, especially in the event of the ever increasing rainfall, will increase with the construction of hard surfaces. MSD will be reviewing and approving the plans to address this fact. But Kirkwood needs to review the greater situation and make strong recommendations to make sure that the entire surrounding area is considered. Briar Hill Farms runoff and the flooding of Ballas need to be addressed and corrected and improved. Precautionary measures need to be taken to ensure that sanitary sewers are not overtaken with any water runoff. And the retention pond must be maintained to ensure that it does not become stagnant nor a breeding ground for mosquitoes. I live right next to that retention pond. The project plans for 600 North Ballas include an 8-inch water line hookup onto the existing water line of U Vista subdivision. The U Vista 6-inch water line is old
and is in constant need of repair and is scheduled for replacement. Hooking an 8-inch water line to an old deteriorating 6-inch water line is a recipe for disaster. Make sure UVista's 8-inch water line replacement takes place before tying the project's water line into it.
David?
That's all.
Okay, very good. Do we have any final questions from council? All right, seeing none, this public hearing is closed and we will have the resolution. I said first reading. Resolution, which means one vote, and that will be at our next meeting on August 18th. Thank you very much, all. We will now move on to public comments.
The public comments portion of the meeting is an opportunity for the city council to listen to comments from citizens. It is not a question and answer session, and the city council will not respond to comments or answer questions during this period. The mayor may refer any matter brought up to the city council to the chief administrative officer or city clerk if action is needed.
Thank you, Laurie. Kim, do we have anyone wishing to speak?
Mayor and council, we do have a couple cards. The first one is Clint Elder.
Good evening. My name is Clint Elder. I am the meter lead here at Kirkwood Electric. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Employee Advisory Committee and the employees of the city. I've been at Kirkwood Electric for 9 years, worked in the private industry for over 15, and I'm a former Marine. At Kirkwood Electric, I started out as a meter reader and used to walk 8 to 10 miles a day, reading both water and electric meters. Then back in 2016, I ran the project to install the automated meter reading for the electric system. Today, a big part of my job is working during power outages like we had last night and last week. I use the AMI system to let our crews know where the power outages are at, and I let the customers know what we're doing to get the power back on with messages on our outage map through our website. I know firsthand what it's like to work in the utility business out in the field. These jobs, whether electric, water, sanitation, streets, or parks, are physically demanding, and we have to be on the job and away from our families in the afternoons, at night, on weekends, and on holidays. It's what we signed up for, and we have a passion for our work. But when you reach the 30-year point in your career, your body is worn out. As a member of the IBEW and a shop steward, I know what's being offered to utility workers out there. Ameren and other utilities offer 30 and out. We've had people leave from Kirkwood Electric to go to other utilities, and we're having problems getting experienced folks to come work here because of the pension plan. The pension gives guys like me a chance to retire when our bodies are worn out, and the pension is the biggest reason folks don't want to work here or stay here. Bottom line, we love our jobs. We love providing the services to the city offers to its customers and its citizens, but we also love our families. Early on in our careers, we sacrificed our bodies and time with our families, and we'd like to be able to retire at the end of our careers while we still can get around and enjoy the time that we have left on this earth. Everyone in the trades supports a defined benefit retirement pension plan, because it gives us the chance to have a guaranteed amount of money in our retirement in exchange for the sacrifices we make in our public service careers. If we're going to be able to build a team and keep it intact here in Kirkwood, we need to offer a pension plan that is attractive to the folks in the trade skills. Thank you.
Mark Petty.
Mark Petty, I'm the director, Kirkwood Electric. Proud to work with a guy named Clinton Elder. Was out with me like we were all last night from 10 o'clock on till today. Because that's what we do. When there's a fire, you run out, we run in. When there's a pothole, you drive around it, we drive to it. you got wires down and they're sparking. You got to get away so we can get both our hands on it and put it back together. The things that we do are a lot different than what other people do. And the things that we need to have to build a team and to have the type of staff that support the services that make Kirkwood great are different than what are normally associated with other professions. And I think that people know that that's the case. And you've heard from me on a few occasions about this topic since 2015. But the issue, we basically had the opportunity to have a study. The McGrath did a study. If you recall, that study was in 2018, and that study did describe that the surrounding communities had a defined benefit plan. If we were going to be competitive, we had to have the same thing. Again, as we went about the business of trying to survey our employees and find out what they thought about what we needed to do to be competitive, but both through a survey that I did in 2015 and again, most recently in 2018, overwhelmingly the pension was the issue of interest. And quite frankly, most recently, there was an opportunity for some discussion and even an election about the topic, but that election didn't include the civilian employees participating in both the campaign or the discussion until recently, when the different types of entities that are committees within the city had the opportunity to have an appearance before council. And the reason I speak about these appearances with these other folks is that both the Citizens Finance Committee had the opportunity to weigh in, and the Civilian Pension Board, which is again, not made of a majority of civilian workers, but outsiders that are not actually workers within the city. Those entities had the opportunity to appear before council. So what I'd like to suggest today is that before the council has any type of decision that determines the fate of the civilian employees, that we have the opportunity, just as May 11th presented the opportunity to the Civilian Pension Board, that we have the opportunity to come to council at a work session and to describe some of the things that Clinton was able to talk about today. I think that if we can do that, we would be able to try to present some information that maybe is going to be a little bit different than what you've heard before. And certainly, we think that we can address the issue associated with the election and the campaign and what was talked about then versus what we think the reality is today. We certainly would be able to talk about the details associated with the recruiting and the retaining of employees and what we see in the different departments, including the shortages and the type of things that we're trying to do to make up a team and to provide service. And I think, again, we'd certainly be able to have the opportunity to address some of the fears that people have about the long-term situation associated with a defined benefit plan, some things that I think you haven't heard yet. So again, I would like to close just by saying this. Throughout the history of a lot of different situations that take place, there's always times when groups have to appeal to a legislative or a regulatory entity for relief. Maybe it's women's suffrage movement and the vote, where it wasn't necessarily popular that at the time the women would be allowed to vote. Maybe it wasn't the majority opinion at the time, but it was determined that that was the right thing to do. And I could go on, I could talk about civil rights movement or the rights of folks in different types of parts of the community, issues in which either regulatory or legislative bodies had to listen to the appeals of groups and hear the story firsthand and then hear the facts and then make a determination. Might not necessarily have been popular, but at the time was the right thing to do. We make that same appeal to this body today. we believe that we have the right to at least be able to talk about the details as we see them, as we get the chance to come to a work session and talk about it, similar to what happened on May the 11th. I think that if we can do that, I believe that we can help to sway the hearts and minds of the folks that we service. And I think that you will hear, as Clinton is able to describe, the fact that although we are dedicated, the sacrifice that we make means that maybe we need to do a little bit something different to continue to be competitive, to recruit and retain the type of staff that can do service and make Kirkwood great. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about this, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with the Employee Advisory Council and the staff and the rest of my teammates that deliver service in the city of Kirkwood.
We have no more cards.
All right, thank you, Kim. We will move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Motion passes. Move to unfinished business, Bill 10938.
Mayor and council, this is an ordinance appropriating $17,494.40 from the Equitable Sharing Fund balance to the Police Department Machinery and Equipment account, and accepting the bid of Dana Safety Supply, Inc. in the amount of $17,494.40 for the purchase of 80 Surefire X300U-A weapon lights for the police department, and authorizing and directing the Director of Procurement to issue a purchase order.
Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons,
Yes.
Councilmember Litzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Ward,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer.
Yes.
Bill passes. New business, Bill 10939.
Mayor and council, this is an ordinance readopting the procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interests for certain officials as set forth in Chapter 2, Article 1, Section 2-5 of the Kirkwood Code of Ordinances.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Bill passes first reading. Bill 10940.
Mayor and council, this is an ordinance appropriating $925,154 from the Certificates of Participation Series 2022 to the Fire Department Rolling Stock Account Project FD 2308, and accepting the bid of Sentinel Emergency Solutions LLC in the amount of $925,154 pursuant to the HGAC by cooperative contract for the purchase of a Rosenbauer rescue pumper for the fire department, and authorizing and directing the Director of Procurement to issue a purchase order.
Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Have any questions or comments?
Mayor,
Oh, Councilmember Ward.
Dave, no one from the fire department here, but it's my understanding that we ordered this truck with a significant amount of gear stripped off of it to get the price down.
There were a few items removed in order to reduce the price of the vehicle. Yes.
So I think it's important the community understand that we made an effort to reduce the price. Hopefully it's not going to impact us in terms of our ability to fight fires, but
There's about $130,000 worth of equipment removed.
thank you.
Councilmember Gibbons.
And is this a lease purchase or a purchase?
This is a straight purchase.
Straight purchase. And what firehouse will it go to?
That I will have to verify which asset it was.
And then will we sell, it's replacing a pumper, and then will we sell the other one?
We will trade it in, actually, as
Oh.
part of the purchase.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions or comments on this? All right, seeing none, all in favor of first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Bill passes first reading. Resolution 101, 2022.
Mayor and council, this is a resolution accepting the bid of Tramar Contracting, Inc. in the amount of not to exceed $80,038.50, which includes a contingency of $5,000 for 2022 acrylic waterborne pavement markings, and authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
All right, any questions or comments? Councilmember Gibbons this time.
Well, Chris, just directed to Chris that this is like we've voted one other time. It's not the best paint, but we're going to paint more often. Is that correct? And what is more often? How is that?
Councilmember Ward?
Yeah, so the 2-year cycle. Does this paint guarantee us that the effective coverage or visibility of the crossings where these are used is there for 2 years? Or will we be? I guess I'm concerned with whether we're actually going to be able to get 2 years and still have an effective marking of our crosswalk.
So if I understand your question correctly, are you going to have markings that have reflective characteristics for the entire 2 years? And then we're going to have to paint again in 2 years.
Yeah, I guess, and I'm not aware if is there some minimum standard of visibility in crosswalk markings? And will this provide that
standard?
There is no standard.
There's no specific standard that an agency puts out there. However, this is the paint that MoDOT uses, county uses, every other municipality uses on their annual striping.
So are they hitting it once a year, or
They actually paint every year.
so they have a higher, I'm going to assume that they have a higher standard than we do. If they're hitting it every year, and we're proposing to hit it every 2, maybe.
Yeah, we just don't have the funding to do that.
But will we ever get there if we never know what that amount needs to be? You know, this is probably an unfair question for you, but for the council, it appears to me that we should have some kind of standard that we apply to this, rather than saying, well, we don't have enough money, so we're not doing enough.
So you're effectively asking, will this last 2 years? Is that the gist of the question?
Yeah, well, we know it'll last 2 years, but is
Well,
it
I mean,
effective?
effectively.
yeah.
I guess what's your thought on that? I mean, what we have out there now with this product?
I think it's, when I say it will last 2 years, that's the next time it will need to be repainted. So it may last longer than that, based upon pavement, how much sun it gets, how much traffic gets on the road and such like that. So there's different conditions, but that's generally when the next time we would be painting with this material.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Any other council comments or questions on this? Or you, I can't tell, you're leaning
Sorry.
forward.
I already asked.
No, okay. All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey?
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Lutzo?
Yes.
Councilmember Sears?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 102, 2022.
Mayor and council, this is a resolution transferring funds in the amount of $19,461 from the landfill disposal fees account to the building and site improvement account, project SA 2304. accepting the quote of Middendorf and Roos Construction, Inc. in the amount of $19,461 for recycling center repairs and authorizing and directing the Director of Procurement to issue a purchase order.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? I heard it was, I think it was,
Wallace, okay, thank you.
okay, I heard someone over here. Thank you. Did I see a hand for a question? Okay, all right.
Yeah, I guess, Mayor, is the work that we're here, is this dire? Is this really urgent work, or is it jeopardizing our ability to function?
Have you been over there lately?
Yes, it's dire. It's a safety issue for both the public and for the staffing.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, I
Zimmer?
was kind of, my question was similar to that, but is there anything else that's dire besides this current condition? Is there something, that maybe 2-3 years from now that we're going to have to address? I know this facility has been there a long time now, and should we anticipate further costs?
No, I would hope not, okay, because basically this is due to operational errors and mistakes over a period of time. So we've changed some of our operational work to try and avoid the contact with that wall.
Thanks, Bill.
Need more rubber tractors?
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey?
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo?
Yes.
Councilmember Sears?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 103, 2022.
Mayor and council, this is a resolution accepting the quote of Superion LLC in the amount of $121,736.06 for Central Square software renewal for the MIS department and authorizing and directing the Director of Procurement to issue a purchase order.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Second.
Second. Have many questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please. Oh, was there one? I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, that's all right. I just had a general question, if somebody can answer it. This Central Square software, what is the software used for? What does it cover?
Central Square software is our current ERP system. It is going to be phased out here over the next couple of years, but it'll take about 2 fiscal year cycles for it to phase out until implementation of the new ERP.
Great, thank you.
No others, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey?
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo?
Yes.
Councilmember Sears?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 104, 2022.
Mayor and council, this is a resolution authorizing and directing the submittal of a Transportation Alternatives Program TAP application to East-West Gateway Council of Governments for federal funds for the Gravois Greenway and Grants Trail Extension.
Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey?
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo?
Yes.
Councilmember Sears?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 105, 2022.
Mayor and council, this is a resolution authorizing and directing the submittal of a Transportation Alternatives Program TAP application to East-West Gateway Council of Governments for federal funds for pedestrian improvements to Argonne Drive.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, been motion in several seconds, so take your choice. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin?
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey?
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons?
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo?
Yes.
Councilmember Sears?
Yes.
Councilmember Ward?
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes.
Resolution passes. We'll move on to city council reports. And I have one thing to report, which I don't know is really public yet, but we have a council member here who last weekend became a grandfather. And Henry Sears Dean Pearson.
No. Henry Dean,
Henry, you told me he had 4 names.
Henry Dean, Sears Pearson.
Oh, I got him reversed. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
It's
Let
okay.
me start all over.
Yeah, do that again.
Yes, we have a council member. Henry Dean Sears Pearson. Congratulations, Bob.
Thank
You
you.
and Sharon, and
Very cool.
parents.
He hasn't appeared proud at all.
No, not at all.
Anything else from council? Councilmember Zimmer?
Yes. On July 23rd, I had the honor of presenting a certificate to the Kirkwood AMVETS Post Number 1 for the 75th anniversary. 75 years ago, on July 23rd, President Truman signed a bill enacting AMVETS into law. Post Number 1 is right here in Kirkwood. They were very appreciative that the council supports them, and they sent their thanks.
Thank you for taking
My
that over there.
pleasure.
Thank you
Nice.
very much.
Always support veterans.
Yep.
Yep.
Nice.
Councilmember Gibbons.
I am going to be going out of town in the next, on my trip. I am going to go to Geneva, Illinois. I'm interested in our train station being more of a community gathering place. We're spending $5 million to renovate it, and I really feel like the citizens need to not just be passengers on Amtrak to utilize it, but there might be other things that we could include in the renovations. And I found out from neighbors of mine here in Kirkwood that used to live in Geneva that their train station actually has a bar in it. Everybody goes there before they decide where they're going to go for dinner in town. So I'm going to go just check it out. What are the possibilities for our train station? So just wanted to let you know that.
You're going on a field trip.
I'm going on a field trip. Yeah, I'll come back
To a
with
bar.
notes. Coffee, who knows, whatever. Another item that I just wanted to bring up, because I've heard from citizens about seating on Ann Avenue. I have talked to Russ about it. Russ, there was a study, and yes, there is a problem, but apparently we don't know how to fix the problem. So I just out there that we know there's a problem. We have a school right there too. Last thing is that I got a call from the president of Bradford Square Condos, like many, including my council member here. They had flooding, but not just today. They've all 3 days. Their garage has filled up again with trash and water, but the water was bringing the trash in, grass clippings, because apparently a lot of places landscapers blow the clippings into yard. The landlord to the north of them, which is soon to be Kettlewood, never empties the gutters. So there's just a lot of issues going on down there. And 3 times in 1 week to have that much water in your garage.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. Councilmember Ward.
I just wanted to note that Councilperson Gibbons she neglected to note that she and Mike have engaged a security firm to watch their home while they're out of town.
Oh God. Thank you, Walt.
Yeah, yeah,
Everybody knows.
right.
All right.
Nobody's gonna go near there.
Anything else?
Yeah,
Councilmember
I
Dewey.
would just, Councilmember Gibbons and I talked a little bit about Ann this afternoon, and I would just second what she said. And it's used as a pass-through street, and people drive 1,000,000 miles an hour on it. And
there are houses all along it. So we do need to look at complete streets and Vision Zero and see what we can do about it.
All right, Chief Administrative Officer report,
I have no report at this time.
City Attorney report, City Clerk report.
Yes, Your Honor, I have one thing to report. We have a scheduled upcoming public hearing on August 18th, 2022. We have a public hearing for the allocation of $46,800 in community development block grant funds. And that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. Our next meeting will be 7 PM. 2 weeks from tonight, August 28th. This meeting is adjourned.
August 18th.
What did I say?
28th.